Tricky consonants in Spanish. In Spanish, the letter R can be a little tricky because it has two different sounds and two different spellings. Let's make it really clear. First, the two sounds. The first sound is the short tap R. It's a quick flick of the tongue, very light, almost like the TT in the English word butter. For example, pero, which means but. The second sound is the rolled or trilled R. This is the strong vibrating sound made with the tongue. For example, perro, which means dog. So Spanish has two R sounds, the tap and the roll. Now let's look at the two spellings. In Spanish, we write R in two ways, a single R and a double R. Here's the important rule. The single R can make either sound, depending on where it is in the word. The double R always makes the rolled sound. So how do we know which sound to use? Here are the rules. A single R usually makes the tap sound when it is between vowels. For example, caro, expensive. But a single R makes the rolled sound at the beginning of a word, like rosa, which means rose, or after the letter L, N, or S. For example, enredo, which means a mess, sonrisa, which means a smile. And the double R always makes the rolled sound, like in perro, which means dog, or carro, which means car. So to summarize, Spanish has two sounds for R, the tap and the roll. The single R can be either one, depending on position. The double R is always rolled. That's why pero, but, and perro, dog, sound different. Keep practicing these because mastering the R and double R is a big step towards sounding natural in Spanish. Now that you know when to use the tap R and when to use the rolled R, let's talk about how to actually make these sounds. First, the tap R. For the tap R, place the tip of your tongue just behind the upper front teeth, on that little ridge called the alveolar ridge. Then flick the tongue quickly against it just once. It's a single tap, very light, almost like the TT in the English word butter. Like this. Ra 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 ra. Repeat after me. Pero, pero, pero. Now the rolled or trilled R. This one takes more practice. You use the same spot. The tip of the tongue touches just behind the upper front teeth. But instead of a single flick, you let the tongue vibrate rapidly by using your breath. Think of it as pushing air out while relaxing your tongue so it vibrates like a little motor. It's not about moving your tongue up and down. It's about letting the air make it vibrate. When you make the rolled R, here's a little secret. The sides of your tongue should press lightly against the roof of the mouth, almost like a cup. This blocks the air from escaping through the sides and forces it through the center. That forced airflow makes the tip of your tongue vibrate, and that's what gives you the rolling sound. A good way to practice is to start with the sound of a small motor or a cat purring. Keep the tongue relaxed. Let the airflow do the work. Then try it with words. Repeat after me. Perro, carro, rápido. So remember, the tap R is just one quick flick of the tongue. The rolled R is the same place, but with vibration and airflow. It takes time, so don't get discouraged. Many learners need weeks or even months of practice before they can roll the R. Just keep trying a little every day. Now let's talk about a very unique sound in Spanish, the letter ñ. This letter doesn't exist in English, and it has its own special sound. The ñ is pronounced like the ny sound in the English word canyon or onion. For example, año means year, niño means child, señor means sir or mister. And here's something important. This little squiggle called the tilde only goes on the letter N. You'll never see it on any other letter in Spanish. And when you see it, it completely changes the sound from a plain N to that special NY sound. To make this sound, your tongue touches the roof of your mouth, just behind your teeth, like when you say the English N. But then it slides into a quick Y sound, like ñ, ñ. Let's practice. Repeat after me. Niño, señora, España, mañana. Great. Remember, N and ñ are two different letters with two different sounds. Now let's look at another important letter combination in Spanish, the double L. First, just to be clear, a single L in Spanish is pronounced the same way as the English L in lemon. Nice and simple. But when you see two L's together, the sound changes. In most places, it makes a sound similar to the English Y in yes. For example, llamar, to call, llave, key, and calle, street. So when you see two L's together, just make a smooth y sound, like in yes. Now keep in mind that in different Spanish-speaking countries, the pronunciation can vary a little. Some people pronounce the double L more like a zh sound, like the S in measure. Others can pronounce it like the SH in shoe. But the most common and widely understood version is the Y sound. And that's the one I recommend you learn first. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. Llamar, llave, calle, pollo. Great. So remember, a single L is like the English L, but a double L usually sounds like a Y. Now let's talk about another important Spanish sound, the letter J, which is called jota in Spanish. Here's what you need to know. The Spanish J does not sound like the English J in juice. Instead, it has a rough, breathy sound, kind of like the English H in house, but much stronger, almost like you're cleaning your throat gently. It's made in the back of your mouth with air passing through your throat. Don't be afraid if it feels a little scratchy at first. That's exactly how it should sound. For example, jamón, ham, jugo, juice, joven, young, rojo, red. Repeat after me. Jamón, jugo, joven, rojo. Notice how every J has that strong breathy sound. Great job. So remember, The Spanish J is never like the English J. It's always that strong, breathy sound from your throat. More like an H, but stronger. Now let's look at the letter H in Spanish. The important thing to know is the H is always silent. Unlike in English, you never pronounce it. For example, hola means hello. Hotel means hotel. Hermano means brother. See, the H is written, but you don't hear it. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. Hola. Hotel. Hermano. Perfect. Just remember, in Spanish, the H never makes a sound. Now let's talk about the letter B and V in Spanish. Here's the important thing to know. B and V make the exact same sound. So, when you see the word vino with a V, you actually pronounce it like it has a B. Vino. Or vaca becomes vaca. But here's where it gets a little more interesting. The sound of the B can change depending on where it is in the word. At the beginning of a word or after the letters M or N, it's a strong, hard B sound, just like in English. For example, bien, vaca, enviar. But between vowels, the sound becomes softer. Your lips don't close all the way. It's like a lazy B, or kind of like a soft V in English, but not exactly. For example, saber, lavar, ave. So to summarize, V always sounds like B. And the letter B has two sounds. The strong B at the start of words or after M and N, and the softer B between vowels. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. Bien. Vaca. Enviar. And now the softer B sound. Saber. Lavar. Ave. Great job! Now you know how to pronounce B and V in Spanish. They're really the same letter in practice. Just like we saw with B, which has a strong sound at the start of words and a softer sound between vowels, the letters C, G, and D also follow the same idea. Their sound changes depending on their position in the word or the vowel that follows. Let's start with C. The hard C sounds like the English K before A, O, or U. For example, casa, copa. The soft C sounds like the English S before E and I. For example, cena, cine. Next is G. The hard G sounds like the English G in go before A, O, and U. For example, gato, gusto. The soft G sounds like a strong English H before the E and the I. For example, gente, girar. Finally, D. The hard D is like the English D at the start of words and after the N or the L. For example, dedo, andar. The soft D appears between vowels and sounds a little like the English TH. For example, nada, ciudad. Now let's practice together. We'll go letter by letter. First the hard sound, then 3 soft sounds. Repeat after me. Letter C. Hard sound. Casa. Soft sound. Cena. Cine. Cima. Letter G. Hard sound. Gato. Soft sound. Gente. Girar. Gemelo. Letter D. Hard sound. Dedo. Soft sound. Nada. Ciudad. Edad. Notice the pattern. Just like B, C, G, and D change their sound depending on their position or the vowel that follows. Once you recognize it, reading and pronouncing new words becomes much easier. Now let's look at the letter X. X is a bit special in Spanish because it has 3 different sounds depending on the word. The most common sound is like the English KS. For example, taxi, examen, extra. In some words, X sounds like a throaty H, similar to the Spanish J. For example, Mexico, Jimena. Here the X is pronounced like a strong throaty H. In rare cases, the X sounds like an S, especially in certain names. For example, Xiomara. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. Taxi. Examen. Extra. México. Jimena. Xiomara. Great! Once you get used to these patterns, reading and pronouncing words with X becomes much easier. Now let's look at the letter Z. In Latin American Spanish, Z is very simple. It's pronounced just like S. This means that any word with a Z sounds exactly the same as if it had an S. For example, zapato, cerveza, cereza, zanahoria. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. Zapato, cerveza, cereza, zanahoria. Great! Remember, in Latin America, Z and S are pronounced the same. So once you learn this, words with Z become easy to read and say correctly. In an upcoming bonus video, we'll talk about the different pronunciations of Z and other letters in Spain, Argentina, and Uruguay, because these 3 countries pronounce some letters differently than the rest of Latin America. Excellent work! You've just gone through the trickiest consonant sounds in Spanish. At first, these sounds can feel strange, but with a little practice, they'll start to come naturally. Remember, pronunciation is not about being perfect. It's about being clear and understood. So keep practicing. Repeat the examples as often as you need. And soon, these sounds will feel automatic. In the next lessons, we'll keep building your Spanish step by step, so you can speak with confidence. See you in the next lesson.